I'm so excited to introduce you to one of the most capable and joy-filled leaders that I know. Liz Acord is the Executive Vice President responsible for an oncology program in Southern California in a $3.5 billion healthcare system. She's also the mother of a delightful 8-year-old boy and partner to a successful executive in the entertainment industry. And if you've followed my work, you know that I think the 3 pillars of leadership are well-being, relationships, and intentionality. And Liz is one of the most intentional leaders I know. And she's also, as a working mom, needs to be an intentional leader. Mothers are among the most intentional people on the planet. So Liz, if it's okay with you, as we talk about leadership, I'd like to focus on intentionality. Is that okay?
Absolutely.
Okay. So before we launch in, how are you doing? It's been a heck of a year.
I'm doing well. It has been a heck of a year. One I never thought I would see. But here we are, and we're still here. How about you?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Many adventures over the past year and a half, and many blessings too. So I feel fortunate to be able to say that. So let's launch right into intentionality. And you must have some tricks up your sleeve for how you perform as an intentional leader. Have you got a couple of those that you can share? And then I'm going to ask you about being an intentional mother as well.
Sure. Structure is incredibly important. So I think we all have busy schedules. And so when it's important to connect to people, when you have informal tasks that need to be completed, calendar. We all have calendars. And I often calendar times and activities that aren't meetings, they aren't with other people, but to ensure that I hold time and that if I lose that time to something, I have to move it and find a different time for what was important.
Any tips for working parents about intentionality in parenting?
In truth, I apply the same principles to parenting as I do to work. Structure is important. Calendaring is important. Setting expectations with your child. And then when you commit to spending time together, focusing on that time.
I imagine you have an incredible amount of compassion and sensitivity for the people who work with and for you, who are also parents. What things do you do to make sure that they feel supported and continue to be engaged in the midst of all of the demands on their time?
I think it's important to acknowledge that it's hard. And there are days that feel harder than others. And I often have particularly new parents, a lot of my colleagues that are of a similar age or just having children, say to me, does it ever get easier? I'm not sure it gets easier, but it gets different. But I think just acknowledging that, I think often in work environments, we're very dismissive of how challenging it can feel. And being open about discussing those challenges is incredibly important. People need to feel heard and they need to have an outlet.
You know, we are able to have some empathy because we've been down this road ourselves as parents. Do you feel comfortable telling us about one of your toughest days as a working mom?
Sure. When Remington was a toddler and he had just started at preschool, and I went to pick him up after a very busy day, and they had, it was such a blessing. They had very long hours, but it was a long day for a young child. I could drop him off as early as 6:30 and pick him up as late as 6:30. And I had had a long day and came at the tail end of that. And he had fallen during the course of the day and split his lip. He had an abrasion on his cheek, and he didn't have shoes on. And after speaking with the school, they shared the story with me about how he'd fallen and what had happened to the shoes. But all I could think was, I left him like that all day. I had no idea that had happened to him. And I felt this incredible guilt. And the next day was very challenging. It was hard to drop him off in the morning. I didn't let go of that feeling that somehow I had failed him. And I carried it with me throughout my workday. I often, found my mind wandering and not being focused on what I was doing because I was worried about what was happening to him. In retrospect now that he's older and time has passed and we have the opportunity to see it through a different lens, I recognize that no parent is ever there every time their child falls. Mm-hmm. But in those moments, especially when your child is young, and I think particularly when it's a first child or an only child, it feels awful.
Has he forgiven you?
I don't think he was ever upset with me.
What do you do, Liz, to attend to your own well-being?
Pilates.
Okay, that's great. Girl after my own heart.
I love the way Pilates gives me an outlet to make my body feel good. And I think that that's incredibly important. When we're healthy, when we feel good, I think that we do better work. We are better parents.
You mentioned well-being and you mentioned relationships. So I'd love to talk about both of those things. One of the things that we've said to one another over the years is that leadership is a relationship between someone who says, follow me, and someone else who says, I will. And I see you as a master of someone who builds relationships, supportive, enduring relationships with members of her team. Can you share a couple of ways that you do that?
Well, I think it starts with a fundamental love of people and a genuine interest in who they are and what's going on in their lives. Mm-hmm. I don't think that you can fake that. So I think that that's incredibly important. And then creating the time and the space and the structure that affords you the opportunity to connect with people and have those conversations, to ask them how they're doing, to learn their children's names and call them by name, right? I mean, we've all had many relationships where people ask the same questions every time we see them as if it's rote. Don't be rote, really engage, listen, hear people. And I think that's incredibly important. And I am not good with names and I am not good with dates, but remembering things like birthdays or anniversaries, certain types of anniversaries, right? I know that it's important to people, so I write them down on my calendar. You don't have to memorize everything.
When you think back over your career, I'm sure there are people who have influenced you, whether they're leaders or managers or even friends, colleagues who have taught you lessons. Any particular people or lessons that come to mind?
My brother, who passed away in 2007, had his own restaurant. And I was just starting my career at the time, right? Fresh out of college. I knew everything. Of course. I knew everything. I was ready to go. And I would come and help in his restaurants. I would fly back from Chicago and help in his restaurant sometimes on the weekend. And I remember this moment where one of his waiters I noticed wasn't serving properly from the right side. They had a thumb in a soup bowl, things that you're not supposed to do. And I had a conversation with my brother about it. And my approach as a 22-year-old with no life experience was, well, he doesn't have the right skills. You need to let him go. Doesn't have the right skills. And my brother turned and looked at me and said, but you know what he does have? And I said, what? And he said, he has a passion for what he does. He cares deeply and he takes feedback and he wants to be better. And I can teach him how to serve in fine dining. I can teach him, which side to take from and which side to set a plate down from. But I can't teach somebody to care about their job. And I don't know that it really registered with me at the time. I'm not going to pretend like at 22, it was this life-changing moment. But when I lost him and I reflected on who he was and what I've learned from him, that advice stuck with me professionally, and I've carried it with me ever since.
I'm so sorry you lost your brother. I lost my brother, and it's a deep, deep loss, and a big part of it is watching our parents deal with that loss, I think. So I imagine that you are a tremendous comfort to your parents in spite of that. So thanks for sharing that story with us, Liz.
Thank you.
Can you share with me what your best day at work looks like?
Oh, that's a hard one for me because I love work. I have so many best days.
Nice. It's a decision that you make, though, mind you, right?
It is a decision you make. I think you choose joy. I suppose, though, if I could, boil it down to some of my best, as I reflect on work, and some of my best memories or the things that stick with me, it's the moments where people feel a sense of accomplishment. And it's not always, it's usually a team. It's not me independently. Having the opportunity to share that joy with other people, that excitement with other people, that's a high for me. I love that.
So one of the things I know about you, Liz, is in addition to sharing joy and letting people experience joy at work, you're a pace setter, but you have a really nice ability to take the measure of the room or the team and make sure that you're not setting a pace that's unachievable over a long period of time. Finding that right balance between joy at work and setting a pace where great work gets done is an incredible skill. Where do you think you learned that?
It's been an evolution. At the beginning of my career, I was once told, after taking one of those personality assessments, leadership assessments that we take often, that I was driving the success train, and I stopped at every station, but I didn't wait for anyone else to get on. And that stuck with me. I think it's evolved over time, and reflection on, where I've been most successful and perhaps where I haven't. And knowing that I've been most successful when I do read the room, when we do seek consensus and partnership and working together, and that not everyone moves at the same pace. And it's not just about pace, it's about fulfilling what their need might be. So for example, I need data. I need data to feel like I can move forward. Not everybody needs data. And being able to voice that and ask people what they need or where they're at is certainly a skill that I've learned. And I think I've had some great mentors who have helped me with that over the years, including you.
Oh, thank you for that. Thank you for that. What things did you learn last year as a leader facing so many social and environmental issues in the workplace?
Well, I learned that it's completely overwhelming.
Mhm. Mhm.
all of the work that we need to do, from both a social perspective as well as what we want to accomplish in healthcare, and in our personal lives. I also learned that I don't know or understand as much as I thought I did.
Mhm.
I think that that's important. I think one of the gifts of all of this happening and all of it happening during COVID is all of the communication and what friends of mine have shared with me, what colleagues have shared with me, because now there's a safer space to have those discussions and those conversations. And that, I think, as difficult and challenging as the year has been, I think that that's a gift. And I hope that we don't lose that on the other side of COVID. I hope that we don't just revert back to where we were before. I hope that we continue to partner to tackle some of these incredibly complex social issues.
Is there anything you'd like to share with me that I haven't asked you about as relates to leadership or motherhood or the integration of your amazingly complex job and the role of being a mom?
I think that the only thing I would add, or rather underscore, because we've touched on it several times, is the importance of joy. Mm-hmm. And finding joy every day in as many moments as you can. And that doesn't mean we don't acknowledge the hard moments or have difficult times. But if I could leave anyone, if I could leave a legacy, it would be, wow, she was joyful and she brought joy to our lives. Mm-hmm. Working in healthcare, working with cancer patients, and finding the joy has been so incredibly important to me and important to my teams. And I often hear when I've left an organization or left a project, what I hear from people is, gosh, we really miss your laugh. Mm-hmm. Because it makes them laugh. And I think we have to remember laughter is infectious, and do your best to find the joy.
Mm-hmm. That is a beautiful place to close. And I don't think I can add any more to that. I've learned a lot from you today, Liz. I always do. Joy at work and joy in life being one of those things. So thank you for making this a joyful day for me and a joyful experience. And I wish you all the same the rest of this week.
Thanks, Tammy.
All right. Go forth and lead. Bye-bye.
Bye.